everybody doing? Welcome to Transgurus again. We've been out for a couple of weeks because of health reasons. And we've changed a couple of things, like we've put some new lighting. I hope it's nice for you that you can see us much better. And we're trying to make things even better all the time, like, for example, the new cups, Transguru cups. No plastic anymore, right? Okay.
We're going green.
Yeah. So today's theme is something called Transgender Health, HRT. So, who'd like to start?
So, I really liked how I went on HRT, Hormone Replacement Therapy, so young. I know some people don't have the luxury, but I was able to go through a second puberty. And with that
What
second
age?
puberty, I was 21. I was actually 20. I was just about to turn 21. So it was December 2013 when I went on hormones. And I went against everybody's advice telling me not to go on because I was going to jeopardize me going on to the track and field team, going through events and meets and stuff. And I did it anyway because it was that much of a desire burning within me that I just had to go do it. And when I went on HRT, the changes were no joke. Like, beyond that, I had a couple hairs on my chin that I didn't really think anything of, but this when I probably 3 months in, I started to see it branch out from little stubbles right here, and it came out right here, and I was just so proud of it. It was like my baby. I went as far as to get a boar's brush, because when you start to see a little bit of the growth come in. I went and I was about to say on the universe. I went into the internet. I went in the internet and I looked up all the different ways I could help promote my hair to grow. And so I found boar's brush to work, and I was probably brushing 10 hairs with a boar's brush, trying to stimulate it to grow.
And look at what you got now.
Grow.
So I saw my body recomping, and I went from having tiny hips to no hips, and then I started to have more muscle, and I gained about 30 pounds in 3 months. I packed on weight incredibly fast, and at the time I was thankfully putting on muscle and not fat, because I was lifting like a maniac doing Olympic lifts. And by sticking to that regime and being consistent with it, I was able to get really hulked out with my upper body and my quads and with squats and stuff. So the changes on testosterone for me were incredible physically. Also mentally, I found out that I was the year before me getting on T, I was very emotional. I was a wreck. I was going through a lot, and I would cry a lot. Yes, it's true. I cried. Probably almost every other day. It was a session I was having, trying to come to terms with myself and acceptance and stuff. And second I went on T, though, I noticed that probably about a month in, I became a little bit numbed to my emotions, and I was unable to cry for a very long time, probably 2 years straight. Wow. Yeah, I was, even if I was feeling emotional, I was unable to express those emotions. Has anybody experienced that?
Oh yeah. HRT and emotions, this is something which is incredible.
It's actually the opposite for us.
Yeah.
The opposite.
Exactly.
Yeah, the opposite, but still we have got
Everything
quite a lot
is
of
bigger.
emotional, yeah.
Psychologically.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time where it was a learning curve to try to cope with the emotions, these new emotions?
I don't know if coping would be the right word. It's a for myself, the feelings and the way of self-expression, it was maybe new, but it was a welcoming sense of
being
That's an excellent word. A welcoming sense of being. And yeah, there's a lot more emotion, very sensitive, very emotional. And I've kind of been that way all my life anyhow, but even more so. And things are amplified. That's what I meant by bigger. And what I wanted to talk about just for a minute, hormone replacement therapy and other tools that are available. I use the word tools that are available to transgender folks. It's to close the gap. And how I like to explain it is, in my case, my mind and my spirit are over here. My body's over there. So we have tools available to us to close that gap. And HRT is one of those tools. So is, the surgery, the boob doctor.
Yeah.
And in my case, the getting breasts was profound. And the other day I was at the gym and I ran into one of my friends who's a airline pilot. And he says, "Wow, Jimmy, you got a new look. Are you happy?" I'm like, "Hey man, I've never really been unhappy." And this is how I explained it to him. He's a pilot. So when you're flying an airplane, when you get in cruising altitude, you trim the aircraft so it's the most aerodynamic. So it flies the cleanest through the air. So it says your aircraft is in trim. You adjust a little ailerons and little flaps on your wings and stuff to get the airplane to fly as smooth as possible. And that's what I said to him. I says, now my aircraft is trimmed out. It's in trim, meaning my mind, body, and spirit are in alignment, or at least getting there. It's an ongoing evolution. HRT, boobs, or other surgeries and other things that we can do grow. Every trans man I know has a beard. And that's all part of how we identify with ourselves. And these are all symbolic. Some of it's symbolic, some of it is psychological, and it's all kind of blends together in this soup that creates who we are. And that's how I experienced all this in my life. It's just bringing that mind, body, spirit all in the same zip code, and then you get in alignment, and then that's where you achieve a sense of oneness with yourself. And that's when there's like maximum available horsepower available to the human.
Yeah, and you're about to open up and pedal to the metal once you line up.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, it's funny because Christian was like, well, after a couple weeks, my sex drive went through the roof. And for me, it was like my sex drive, I don't know about the other girls on the panel, but for me, my sex drive went from the roof to about middle of the room.
Oh, okay.
Because, it's like, think about it, like testosterone, and then you're putting this female hormone in your system. And so it kind of like slowed me down like a little. I was like, whoa. But for me, my first experience with HRT was basically on the street. I got my hormones black market. And I actually started with birth control pills because it was like pregnant. and they were like, well, take those and maybe it'll start to grow your breast. And so I did. And then there were some girls that were selling the HRT black market, and then I started taking the pills and even the injections too. But
did the injections, did they like accelerate any of the results? Did you notice?
To me,
things.
it was more powerful. When I injected, I felt like, oh my God, like, because it's like literally going into your system directly, as opposed to taking pills and it has to break down. So for me, I felt a difference. But the interesting thing, I don't know, I might be different from a lot of trans women. And maybe too, well, let me say what I'm going to say. I didn't necessarily like the way hormones made me feel. I felt really weird. And maybe it's because I did it black market and I was trying to figure out what dose, and I wasn't getting like the proper instructions from a doctor.
Yeah.
So maybe I was taking too much or too little, who knows. But I did accomplish my goals. I got my little 13-year-old breast, I called them. And that was the beginning, because you need something to work with. So I went from like a flat chest to like my 13-year-old breast, or my puberty breast, and so as I transitioned more, I actually weaned away from the hormones. I mean, now I can get them from my doctor, which is great, and I would say to anyone that's doing it, make sure and get it from a doctor. Don't do it black market like I did. So I would definitely say that. But I don't really take hormones anymore. I think because, I think I'm at a place now where I'm developed as much as I want to be developed. Actually, this back of mine will attest to that. But can I get a massage?
You want a back brace for Christmas?
Yes.
If your body is not producing hormones, because I went through that, that's why I just had my shoulder replaced and my knee, because I was off hormones for 20 years. My bones fucked up. So what I'm saying is, if you're not taking some form of hormone and your body's producing hormones, you're going to deal with the same shit I went through.
Wow.
Just be aware of that.
Well, okay, so I will say this. Recently when I went to my doctor, she was saying with my blood levels that she was like, your estrogen level is really pretty high. Are you doing pills? And I told her no, I hadn't taken them in a while. And she said that my estrogen level was pretty high. And then when she did I can't even pronounce it. What's the prostrate?
Yeah.
She's like,
Prostate.
prostate. She was like, I can't find it. Wait a minute. Oh my God, it's so small. It's so tiny. And for me, that was a compliment. I'm like, oh yeah, that explains everything. I always had a small prostate. But mentally for me, I don't really think it affected me. So I think everyone is different. And for some girls that I know, if they don't take their hormones, it's like, oh my God, like they really need their HRT. Yeah.
Is it like a mental thing? Is it a physical thing? Like,
I think for some, it can be both. It can be mental, it can be physical, it can be a
both.
combination. But for me, I think my energy has always kind of been this way, and my mental state and personality has been the way it is consistently throughout my life. And so I don't think it affects me. Maybe if I took some today and took it for a week and I came back, you all would be like, oh my gosh, Raji, you're glowing. You're so much more feminine. But I don't know. Yes.
Raj, we've got something in common. My story with hormones actually starts back in the 90s. Back in the 90s, in the beginning of 91, 92, I started to take, hormones, not by prescription, and I took actually the pill. I took a pill at the time which was called Diane 35, which it actually has been forbidden now in most countries. Now, Diane 35 was really great because it had testosterone blocker. And that was, at that time, it was mostly used by transgender people. So, it was not so easy because I was living in Switzerland. And, it was very difficult to get it, but I did get it for a while. And then my doctor refused to give me hormones, which for me it was the end of the world.
must have broke your heart.
Yep. And so I tried to suicide at that time. It was not so nice, but I had a really hard time. And then I found, another person, and she helped me with that. But during all those years, I always tried to take so-called peto hormones. Peto hormones are hormones which are supposed to be natural hormones. And I have to say, the biggest issue with those hormones is that their effect is not so high.
Was it a low dose?
No, it's you're taking something in. You don't really know what's happening with your body because you don't make any blood tests. Because making blood tests is not something which is readily available for everybody. So you really don't know if it's strong or it's not strong. One thing I can say is that when I started my real hormones, my level of testosterone was going sky high through the roof. Because I think that for a while, when I was taking those not so good hormones, my body actually reacted it and got over it. So it was not effective at all. And when I started to have real hormones from the real doctor, which is the only real thing to do and the really good thing to do, my God, I went through an incredible change in my mind and my feelings. I started crying much more, and I tell you, you switch on a film, which is something on the heart, and your eyes just go full of water within 2 seconds. But it made me feel so good.
Like Fox and the Hound.
Yep.
That's a good one. That's a good tearjerker.
But it made me feel good. It made me feel complete. So I mean, for me, hormones are very, very important. But we have to say something as well, and that is, as a transgender person and during transgender health, there are still many doctors which refuse you to give hormones. Even if you've got the right letters from WPATH and everything, you go to the doctor and they just refuse you and they don't want to talk with transgender people. I know someone which had much more difficulties than I did with that. And so, Bonnie, it's your turn. Please tell.
I transitioned a lot of years ago. Hormones back then was a real journey, and it was hard to get. This was back 78 maybe. Anyway, I got the hormones, and then I transitioned, and it was real hard back in those times, but the hormones did change me. I gotta say one thing, I never really got emotional and cried a lot, so. As I say, I'm probably a redneck, but anyway. With all that being said, I went on the hormones, and I actually had my SRS surgery 36 years ago. And back in 1990, I moved and I went from Tampa to Miami, and I went to a doctor, and when the doctor found I was transgender, they basically said, "Get out of my office. They wouldn't even touch me." It was like I had the plague. In 1991, I went to another doctor, and the same thing happened to me, where they were fine, treating me, blah, blah, blah. But then when they found I was transgender, it's like they wouldn't even touch me. I guess they thought maybe I had AIDS or something, which I don't. But anyway, I was treated that way. So I went 20 years without hormones, and I broke like 6 bones. And I went to a male doctor that I've been going to for many years, and he said to me, "We need to put you on testosterone because it builds bones better." But that's a male doctor thinking, where the reality is estrogen builds bones better. So anyway, I went on testosterone for 4 years, which was insanity, but the sex drive was incredible. I mean, I went from no sex drive because I was on hormones for 20 years to super speed. But anyway, so a little over 3 years ago, I went back on estrogen, and my life is 1,000 times better, and I hate that sex drive, and I hate anything to do with testosterone and whatever, and I'd rather do with other stuff. But yeah, everything is good, and your hormones is real important. You need to go to a doctor. You need to be checked. You need to prevent from getting blood clots and all these other different things. And on our Facebook page, we put a doctor down there. What was that doctor's name? The one that
Powers.
Dr. Powers is very, very informative on things with hormones. It's worth looking at. But other than that, life is good, and we're all here. And the hormone thing is really the first step that you have to decide: do I want to make a change in my life? And is this really true, or isn't it? And when you go on the hormones, it's like making that first step more than any other step. So feel good about it, feel positive. And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But if you don't try, there is no way of really knowing.